If you've been curling and pressing for months and your arms still look exactly the same size as when you started, I need you to stop everything you're doing right now and watch this video, because what I'm about to tell you is going to completely reframe why your arms aren't growing, and it has almost nothing to do with how many sets of curls you're doing per week. The first thing you need to understand is that your arms are made up of two completely different muscle groups that most people train with the exact same flawed logic. Your biceps, which is a two-headed muscle on the front of your arm, and your triceps, which is a three-headed muscle on the back. And here is the single most important anatomical fact that will change your training forever. Your triceps makes up approximately 60 to 65% of your total upper arm mass, meaning if you are obsessing over bicep curls while neglecting your triceps, you are literally ignoring the majority of the muscle responsible for making your arms look big. And this is the foundational mistake that keeps probably 70% of gym goers stuck with the same arm size for years. Now, let's go into the neuroscience and biomechanics of why your curls specifically are failing you. Because the problem almost certainly isn't the exercise itself, but the way your nervous system has learned to perform it. When you pick up a dumbbell and curl it, your body will always find the path of least resistance. And for most people, that means the anterior deltoid at the front of your shoulder begins to take over as the primary mover. Your wrists break and collapse. Your elbows drift forward like you're trying to use momentum to swing the weight up. And the result is that your bicep, the muscle you're supposedly training, is doing maybe 50 to 60% of the work, while your shoulder and momentum are doing the rest. An EMG study from the Journal of Human Kinetics confirmed that elbow position during curling movements is the single greatest determinant of bicep activation. And when subjects allowed their elbows to drift forward, even by just 2 to 3 inches during the curl, bicep activation dropped by an average of 31% compared to when elbows were pinned firmly at the sides. 31% less bicep activation on an exercise you're doing specifically to build your biceps from nothing but letting your elbows travel forward, which means if you've been doing this for a year of training, you have essentially wasted nearly a third of every single rep you've ever performed. The second major mistake goes into the psychology of training. And this is where I want you to really pay attention, because understanding this will transform not just your arm training, but your entire approach to the gym. There is a concept in motor learning research called the specificity of attentional focus, studied extensively by Dr. Gabriele Wolf at the University of Nevada. And her research consistently demonstrates that where you direct your mental attention during resistance training fundamentally changes which motor units are recruited and to what degree. When you think about the dumbbell moving and external focus, your nervous system recruits motor units in a generalized, less efficient pattern. But when you think specifically about the muscle you're trying to work, an internal focus, you activate a higher threshold of motor units in that specific muscle, and a study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that subjects instructed to squeeze your bicep as hard as possible throughout the entire curl produced 23% greater bicep EMG activation compared to subjects told to simply lift the weight, doing the identical exercise with identical loads. Same weight, same person, same movement, 23% more muscle activation purely from a psychological shift in attention. And if you've been mindlessly curling while watching YouTube, or talking to your friend at the gym, you now understand exactly why your arms haven't grown. The third reason your arms aren't growing is the one that bodybuilding coaches have been screaming about for decades, but that almost nobody actually implements correctly. And that is the complete absence of intentional training at long muscle lengths, specifically at the stretched position of both the bicep and triceps. Here is what the cutting-edge hypertrophy research now shows with remarkable clarity. A series of studies from 2021 to 2023, including work from researchers like Cassiano and colleagues published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, demonstrated that training muscles at longer lengths, meaning in the stretched position, produced significantly greater muscle hypertrophy compared to training at shorter lengths, even when total volume and load were equated. For your biceps, this means the bottom of the curl, where your arm is fully extended and the bicep is at its longest, is actually the most important part of the range of motion for muscle growth, but most people use so much weight that they either never fully extend at the bottom, or they use momentum to blast past this position as quickly as possible. And for your triceps, it means the overhead tricep extension, where your arm is raised and the long head of the triceps is fully stretched, is dramatically more effective for tricep hypertrophy than pushdowns or kickbacks, where the tricep is never truly lengthened. Yet most people do endless cable pushdowns and ignore overhead extensions because extensions feel harder and less impressive. The fourth mistake destroying your arm growth is a training volume and frequency error that seems counterintuitive but is completely supported by the research on muscle protein synthesis. Most people either train arms way too infrequently, hitting them once a week on arm day and thinking that's sufficient, or they train them with so much volume in a single session that they're inducing junk volume that produces fatigue without proportional adaptation stimulus. Research by Dr. Brad Schoenfeld on training frequency shows that muscle protein synthesis, the cellular process of building new muscle tissue, peaks at roughly 24 to 48 hours after a training stimulus and then returns to baseline. Meaning, if you train your arms only once per week, your muscles are spending approximately 5 days per week doing absolutely nothing in terms of active hypertrophic adaptation. And you're leaving an enormous growth window completely untouched. The research consistently shows that hitting each muscle group twice per week with moderate volume produces superior hypertrophy compared to once per week high volume approaches. And a meta-analysis by Schoenfeld, Ogborn, and Krieger, published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research, confirmed that twice weekly training frequency produced significantly greater muscle growth than once weekly, even when total weekly volume was equated. Meaning, the distribution of your training stimulus matters as much as the total amount of it. Now, I want to go into a deeply psychological reason that your arms aren't growing, one that operates completely below your level of conscious awareness, and that is the phenomenon of ego lifting and its relationship to the identity you've constructed around your training. There is a concept in social psychology called self-enhancement bias, which describes the human tendency to perceive our own performance as better than it objectively is. And in the gym, this manifests as a systematic overestimation of the weight we need to be lifting and a systematic underestimation of how badly our form breaks down under that load. When you grab the 25-pound dumbbells for your curls because the 20s feel embarrassing, even though the 20s would let you maintain strict elbow position and full range of motion, you are making a trade that your ego wins and your biceps loses every single time. and the research on progressive overload makes it abundantly clear that muscle growth is driven by mechanical tension applied to the muscle through its full range of motion under controlled eccentric loading, not by the number printed on the side of the dumbbell. Drop your ego. Drop the weight by 20 to 30%. Pin your elbows to your sides. Lower the weight with a genuine 3-second eccentric count. Pause for 1 second at full extension where the bicep is maximally stretched, and I promise you that you will feel more bicep activation with a 15-pound dumbbell done correctly than you have ever felt with a 30-pound dumbbell done the way you've been doing it. The sixth reason your arms aren't growing connects back to the triceps, and the most common tricep training mistake in existence: the almost universal neglect of the long head of the triceps, which is the largest of the 3 heads and the one most responsible for that horseshoe shape that people associate with impressive arms. And the long head is unique among the tricep heads because it is bi-articular, meaning it crosses both the elbow joint and the shoulder joint, and it only reaches its fully stretched position when the arm is raised overhead. This is why cable pushdowns, the most popular tricep exercise in every commercial gym on earth, are among the least effective exercises for long head development. Because with your arm at your side, the long head is in a shortened position and therefore under minimal stretch-mediated tension, while overhead extensions, overhead cable extensions, and skull crushers, taken to the point where the upper arm is perpendicular to the torso, all place the long head in a lengthened position under load, creating the hypertrophic conditions that will actually build the size and shape of your arm. A study comparing tricep head activation across different exercises found that overhead extensions produced dramatically higher long head activation compared to pushdowns. Yet in most gym programs I see, pushdowns make up 80 to 90% of tricep volume, while overhead work is almost entirely absent. Fix this single thing, and your arms will look different in 8 weeks. The 7th and final reason your arms aren't growing is the absence of structured progression. And this connects to a devastating psychological pattern called the comfort trap, where your training feels productive because you're sweating and your muscles feel pumped, but you're actually just repeating the same stimulus your body fully adapted to months ago. Your body adapts to a training stimulus in as little as 2 to 3 weeks, after which continued exposure to the exact same weight, rep range, and exercise produces diminishing returns that eventually reach zero. This is called the repeated bout effect, and it is the reason that the person who has done 3 sets of 10 curls with 20-pound dumbbells every Monday for the past 6 months has arms that look exactly the same as they did when they started, because the body is extraordinarily efficient at automating repeated movement patterns and reducing the metabolic and structural cost of performing them, meaning your arms are just doing maintenance work, not growth work, and you have been interpreting the sensation of a pump and muscle fatigue as evidence of productive training when it is actually just evidence of familiar training. Implement a simple double progression model. Target a rep range of 8 to 12 for most arm exercises, and when you can complete 12 clean reps with perfect form, increase the weight at your next session. Track this, write it down, take it seriously, and combine this with the other principles from this video. Elbows pinned, full extension at the bottom, a genuine slow eccentric, overhead work for long head tricep development, internal attentional focus on squeezing the target muscle, and a training frequency of at least twice per week for both biceps and triceps. Your arms are not growing because of a combination of biomechanical errors that reduce muscle activation, psychological patterns that prioritize ego over stimulus, programming mistakes that leave most of the weekly hypertrophic window completely empty, and a neglect of the research on long muscle length training that science has now confirmed is the most powerful driver of muscle growth. Fix all of these simultaneously, stay consistent for 12 to 16 weeks, and your arms will grow more in that window than they have in the past 2 years of doing what you've been doing.